Hey everyone, it's a four gun guy. And the video today is going to be on what happens when you're having some really good matches and then you come to a match and it's probably the worst match you've ever shot. So what I want to talk about is how do you kind of recover from that? And beyond that, some things you might want to consider looking at. And we're going to go through that whole process in this video because there could be some things that were out of your control. So let's do a step-by-step check to make sure that if you messed up, it was you. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. Well, the match that I shot, it was here at Walker County Precision. And my gunsmith actually owns this range and puts the course fire together, Larry. And he does a great job. Now, the thing about Larry's matches are they're going to be a little spicy, a little spicy. He likes small targets, which I think is great. It really makes you hone in on what you need to work on. So there's not a lot of big meatball targets sitting out there. We shot out to 1,000 yards yesterday, but a lot of the stuff was inside 600 yards. And that's where my challenge came into play. So for example, we started off on the first stage at shooting off the roof of a truck, standing in the bed. So in a, modified prone position, and the targets were relatively good size at 646 yards. It was two coyotes. And as I said, I just shot a 2-day match in Alabama, and for me, I did really well out there. I made some mental mistakes, but the rifle itself was spot on. And the couple weeks before that, I shot another match at my local club, and I came in like ninth out of however many, 80 something shooters. So I felt really good about me and about my rifle. Now, that match does have some meatball targets, but that match to me was a little spicy as well. Yesterday, first stage, I get a 2, I think. And I'm sitting there going, how is that? Then I went on to get, I think I got a 1, then I got a 3, then I got I mean, it was bad. I think my highest score was 7 yesterday. So needless to say, I was not feeling good at the end of that match. In fact, I almost stopped shooting about the fourth stage. And then I thought to myself, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep shooting and I'm just going to see how things go. Let's practice. And since we have these positions we're going to be shooting out of, let's practice those. And that's what I would have been doing if I went up to practice somewhere. So I went ahead and finished the match. But at the end of that match, I came back to this bench and I started to put shots downrange, and unfortunately I ran out of ammo. But one thing was kind of strange to me, and some of my fellow shooters and the buddies I shoot with were behind me on glass, and they were saying the same thing. They were saying, look, 1 minute you're low, 1 minute you're high, 1 minute it's here, 1 minute it's there. And if I'm off a prop, I'd go, okay, that might be me. I'm off a bench, just like this. I'm stable. I'm on that target. So then Larry came over. We started talking about how we chew our dope and all that. And he gave me some good ideas. In fact, I'm going to try that method today, but that's not what this video is about. So I went home, and of course, on the drive home, you're thinking about everything, right? And you're going, oh, if I, and this wasn't one of those matches that you're saying, if I had only not missed those 2 shots, I would have been in the top 10. No. This was one of those matches that is holy crap, I don't know how I'm not last place in this thing because it was so bad. So on the way home, I thought, look, let's start from scratch. Let's review everything about this rifle. Let's review ourselves, our positioning, and see if yesterday could have been something about me and my rifle or just me and a combination of things. So let's start with the basics and we'll work our way up. All right, well, I thought about the process on the way home last night, on the way here this morning, and I thought, okay, so the first thing I'm going to do when I get to the range is we need to make sure that our platform is stable. right? And I don't mean this, I mean this whole thing. So I took out my torque wrench. I checked the action torque, it was fine. I checked the scope mount, all the torques on that, everything was fine. So you start there. Is everything tight and everything good? Yes, it is. Next thing, okay, what about this thing? What about the scope? I have tall target tracking test posters. I put one down at 100 yards. I have run a tracking test on it. I'm not going to go through all this because there's 1,000 videos on how to do all this stuff. The scope tracks good, very good. So nothing wrong there. So that's starting to leave the dope, my cartridge, and me, right? Uh, I'm taking weather conditions out of this because yesterday there was a little bit of wind, but I don't think on any stage we were we had more than 5/10 wind on anything. That was even out to 1,100 yards. I think, well, maybe I was 6/10 out there. But even after the match, when I reshot and I was shooting at 900 and 1,000 yards, what was weird is that if I held 6/10, I'd hit the target, but then I'd hold 6/10 again and I'd be like a mil off the right side. So it was something very strange. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to send 5 rounds because I already shot this yesterday. I have not cleaned it. I'm not going to clean it. I did a deep cleaning, which I suspect had something to do with yesterday. Should never have done it, but I did. Yesterday I sent about 120 rounds down, and I generally don't clean until I get to 250, 200, 250, 300 rounds. So this is the same rifle I've been using. It has about 2,300 rounds on the barrel. We were talking about a shot out barrel, but then at the very end at 800 yards, Larry said, hit the head on that steel coyote down there. And I just went down there to paint. That coyote's not big. The head's probably the size of this. And I hit it yesterday. So there's something else going on. Let's just see what it is. So I'm going to go through 5 shots on the chrono. That gives me my benchmark for my velocity. So let's start with that. Then we'll come back and talk about the rest of this stuff. Okay, so I sent 7 shots actually to check 0 and to get some initial velocity information. So here's what's interesting. My 0 was off about 2/10 right. So that could account for some of the longer ranges yesterday that everyone kept saying you're off right. So that's probably part of that. Elevation wise, I was about 1/10 off. But again, now if you're going out to distance, that can make a big deal. But the distances we shot 80% of yesterday, that 1/10 wouldn't have made that big of a difference, although the targets were small. So now, see, we're starting to see that one of the variables that could have been part of the equation for yesterday. Now, I will say also the interesting thing is, and I saw this yesterday morning, and actually I didn't have a lot of time to 0 yesterday morning, but I've noticed that my velocity has been lower lately, and I have a feeling that is a new batch of powder that I have. So my velocities are about 20 feet per second slower than they usually are. So that can account for something. So we're starting to see this equation, right? We're starting to see this equation with 0 velocity, and let's see what else we can find. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my dope information from yesterday, okay? And I'm going to start just checking it at different distances. I'll probably do 500, 750, and 1,000 for right now. I apologize, I'm not going to hook my trigger cam up because I need to get this data and I need to get it right. And I only have 49 rounds left, so. But I'll come back with that information after I've done that. All right, well, it's been about an hour and a half since the last segment because I just went through everything. So I reanalyzed my dope out to 1,000 yards. I couldn't see my impacts on the 1100. I know I hit it, but I couldn't see where they were. So I just came into 1,000. I could see those. And I'm going to do a whole nother video on that because I want to do a video on the difference between a custom curve and using traditional methods to true your dope. It's very interesting results here, but that's another video. So I did that. Everything came out fine. I was impacting targets. I will say I had to make 2 adjustments. And one I mentioned earlier, my velocity has dropped. And I had not taken that into account yesterday. So yesterday, doesn't seem like a lot, but there was about 25 feet per second difference in velocity. I was shooting slower. There's one variable. Variable number 2, for some reason, I can't remember when I did this, but it must have been in a match sometime in the past. I had 0.1 mils in my zero height adjustment in my Kestrel for this profile. Now the zero height adjustment, or you can use zero offset, those are used if you're going to add, let's say I put a suppressor on this thing and it shifts my point of impact. I could, instead of re-zeroing everything like your scope, you can go into the Kestrel and say, I want to adjust the zero height or zero offset to account for that shift, right? And then it will take that into consideration. But I had done that. I think I did it before I put this T-back suppressor on there, and I just never changed it. So while my zero at 100 yards was good, when I was getting out to distance, it wasn't. Now I'm going to go back and say, I've shot matches since then, and I've hit targets. Like I said, I did really well at a match up in Navasota 3 weeks ago. I did good for me in the Alabama match. Did miss some things there, but I think that a lot of that was me. So there's another variable to take into consideration. Other than that, I think the big variable of yesterday was me, right? So I think if you had to, if you're doing an algebraic equation and you have x, y, and z variables, I would say the offset was a 1. The velocity was probably a 1 or a 2, and me was probably a 5, right? So 5 times impact on the entire answer. So look, I need to do some work on me, on smaller targets, and just get things in order. So I just wanted to do this video, guys, because sometimes, again, don't get in your truck and say, oh, that rifle sucks, or the scope is a piece of junk, or whatever, right? Sometimes get out to the range with a purpose, and that purpose should be, and thinking about this, I'm going to do this every 6 months. Every 6 months, I'm going to come to a range like this. And Larry, thank you again for letting me use your range today. No one's here. I'm by myself. It's awesome. But every 6 months or so, we should do a total checkup on things. Because had I not done that, that zero height would have still been in there. And I'd have been chasing things around. So every 6 months, do that. I'm going to start from the basics and work my way up and recheck everything. I hope this was beneficial. I hope it made sense. And all I want to say is sometimes, guys, we just have to look inside and see what went wrong. And a lot of it's going to be us. And so we have to think about the props we shot off of. Was I as stable as I could have been? And let's work on that. So thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate the likes, comments, subs. And until next time, shoot straight.